Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of Texas at the Voice of College Football. We really appreciate you guys being here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And Texas comes away with a big win. First time this game has been played in 13 years in Texas. Basically, they do. Let's just say it. They shut out Texas A&M. Other than a pick six there, the Texas defense was phenomenal tonight. Everything is good and belongs right where it needs to be because Texas is back on. Well, we were back on top 13 years ago, but we're back on top in reality now with the win that's happened on the field. So it's really nice for that one. We get to go back to the SEC championship game and rematch Georgia. I think we all want a little bit of payback after that game in Austin. I think we've pretty much seen this team where have they been the greatest team at all times? No, but they've been pretty consistent throughout of who they are. And for whatever reason in that game, it wasn't. So hopefully we can get a little payback with that. Gerald, what did you see in tonight's game?
Yeah, I saw a team that, the defense continued to prove why they're one of the elite units in the country, right? Like this is Herb Street was talking about it on the broadcast. This might be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the country. And they showed that. This was another Pete Kwiatkowski special. PK came in and said, you know what? I'm going to force Marcel Reed to be a drop back passer. And Marcel Reed is going to be a really incredible game-breaking quarterback in the next couple of years. But Marcel Reed today is one read and check down or one read and scramble. And that's what Pete Kwiatkowski forced him to do. And that really limited what A&M's offense was going to do. Like you mentioned it in the intro, the defense pitched a shutout. The defense played one of, if not the most complete games we've seen from them all year. Shout out to Big Vern, continuing to make himself some NFL money next year. Like, Texas's defense can play alongside any offense in the country. Now, can the offense hold up their end of the bargain? That's another conversation for another day. Texas left 17, 24-ish points on the board in that game. Couple of red zone turnovers, the missed field goal looms large. But like overall, Texas did enough to get it done. And the offensive line, in spite of the injury, we'll await what Kelvin Banks' prognosis is on that. But the offensive line seems to be finding its groove at the right time. If Texas continues to be able to run the ball like they did tonight, I mean, Trey Wisner hit 186 on the ground, looked really good doing it. Like, if Texas could run the ball like this, that was the big missing piece against Georgia in the last game. So if Texas shores some of that up, the offensive line plays better, plays up to this standard, we could see a different situation in Atlanta when that game comes. But focusing on tonight's game, the offensive line played really well. The defensive line played really well, forced Marcel Reed to be a one-dimensional player, took away his legs, and ultimately that was the key to the game.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to hit out on, and we kind of touched on this in the pregame, Gerald, about did Sark have like the cojones, I guess, to put in Arch Manning if need be? Well, guess what? He had scripted plays in there for Arch Manning tonight, where it was like, and I think that was really important because you could tell that caught A&M off guard. They were expecting one or the other. They were not expecting both. And on that first run, it was a read option, pretty simple. He just beats the guy, has great contact balance, stays on his feet, and dives in for the touchdown. And that really sparked this team because it's the typical Texas game. If anyone has watched this team under Steve Sarkisian, they have issues getting rolling early on for the most part. But once they get rolling, they play pretty well. And that kind of sparked the offense. They played pretty well again until the third quarter, like the Kentucky game, basically, where you have I've never seen anything like that. I think we had all the offensive yardage basically in that third quarter. I think it was like 100 plus yards to 0 or something like that. And they outscored us 7-0.
Yes.
So, you just got to stop shooting yourself in the foot, but that was really important. And then also shout out to my man, Trevor Gooseby. Came into this game and made one mistake. One. That is it. He had a false start penalty late in the game. And listen, if that's the only thing I'm getting from you in your first real game action as a red shirt freshman, I will deal with that. I will sign up for that 10 out of 10 times. He was phenomenal. And I've talked about Michael Fasusi possibly coming in and being that guy that plays right away as a recruit. If we get this guy to play like this, no chance. Michael Fasusi will come on campus if he chooses to come here, but he ain't playing because that was really impressive to me. I didn't think he had it in him. I've never seen him play. Obviously, I was wrong. So Mr. Hughes had a tough night. He was fantastic tonight, along with the offensive line. Trey Wisner, back-to-back games of breaking his career rushing record. He had like 158 last week. This week, like you said, Gerald, 186 yards on 33 attempts. He was
feed the beast
all night long. Yes. Gerald, what else did you see tonight that you really liked?
Yeah, I want to go back to your mention about Gooseby and just think of where the Texas offensive line was a few years ago, where if an offensive lineman got injured, they had to play like a shell game to get the right guy in there. Are they moving Christian Jones to the other side, or are they going to switch somebody from tackle to guard? And now Texas is in a position where you've got guys who could start on a third to half of the other teams in the conference, and they're riding pine right now. So Texas is able to sub in 1-for-1 on the offensive line and not see significant drop off. Like you mentioned, the one false start, that's a freshman in a hostile environment, in the most hostile environment he's ever been in his first game action or first real game action in 2 years. But I also meant the ability of Texas to play really sound assignment football defensively. There was a play, one of my best friends is an A&M grad, or a former student, I guess they call themselves. But like we were both remarking on Colin Simmons' ability to blow up a zone read on his own, right? Playing sound assignment football, forcing the quarterback to make the decision before you make the decision, and then being athletic enough to blow that up. David Benda, even though Kirk Herbstreit couldn't say his name, David Benda put a drive on his back. Vernon Broughton put a drive on his back. So you're seeing multiple contributors, and Texas is able to rotate. Leon Leifau can't not talk about this game and not talk about him. He forced a fumble. Texas didn't recover it, but his ability to play, that is a guy who, like, that's found money at this point. You didn't expect him to be a key contributor. You've got David Benda, Anthony Hill really carrying the water, and then all of a sudden in game 12, game 11 last week, Leon Leifau comes in and is a stud and a key player for them. So I really think the ability for the Texas defense to have a two deep full of guys who could start, a full two deep of guys who you feel that there's no drop off for, that is a key performance indicator for this defense. And now the offense, they need to play better. Quinn Ewers needs to play better. Struggled, not 100%. Again, he played well as he could with the ankle, but the turnovers, we could talk about that. But when we're talking about positives, the defense is where the conversation starts and ends.
No, 100%. And Jim hits the nail on the head, controlled the line of scrimmage. And we did. The line of scrimmage was not close tonight on either side of the ball. There was no push from A&M up front. And there hasn't been from anyone. And that's what I'd like to see from this team. Like, we've been, especially the offensive line, I'll hit on that first. Like, the offensive line the past 3 to 4 weeks has really started to lean and get the push we thought this team was going to get. Because when you have 5 pros on it, you would expect to get that right away. And we really didn't get that. You got it a little bit in the Michigan game, but basically from every game on up until Florida, you did not get that. You were starting to see it happen. And guys, this is the right time if it's going to happen. I want it late in the season. There's only one missing piece to me that needs to click, and it's the quarterback position. The quarterback position, at times, he looked good. He completed a deep ball to Matthew Golden. The pass to Jaden Blue was not talked about enough. They were talking about, wow, that was a great catch by Jaden Blue to get his foot in. That was a hell of a throw from Quinn Ewers to deliver that ball to where only Jaden Blue could make a play on it. But it's the inconsistency and then also turning the ball over in key moments. And then also defensive line. They've been doing this all year, and people have been saying, who have you played? Who have you played? Listen, you play who's on your schedule, and they've dominated who's on their schedule. They have not. Listen, there's a difference between, they've looked pretty good. No, they have dominated who was on their schedule. Other than Florida, no team has gone for over 300 yards. And the only reason Florida went for over 300 yards is because it was 35-0 at halftime. That is the only reason that team went for over 300 yards versus this defense. This defense is, I think right now, I think it's debatable as the best defense of all time. I'm not willing to put them up there yet because that team has not, and I'm saying as Texas, I shouldn't say as a whole as a country, but as a Texas team, they have to win some things that those Texas teams got to or won. So I'll say that for right now, but they're definitely in the top 3 to 4. I don't think that's really a debate at this point. And it's definitely the best of the last 20 or 15 years.
Yeah, as somebody who watched that 05 team live, it's hard for me to say that it's not. It's better than that 05 team. But again, the fact that we're having the conversation and the fact that, I'm in a group chat and we're like, what position, if you could pick position groups from 05 in 2024, which do you go to? And there was some legitimate debate of like, oh, well, this guy versus that guy. So there's a lot to be said for that. And again, the way that the defense responds in those quick change situations, right? There is again, there's a mentality shift that's happened where 3 or 4 years ago, this Texas team, when the offense turns the ball over in the red zone, they fold, they collapse. Instead, what happens? They force a punt, they force a turnover on downs, right? That to me is the mindset of a championship level defense. And that's what Texas brings to the table. They played an entire drive in the 19 yards in front of their end zone and stopped A&M from scoring. Like, that is culture, that is defense, that is elite defensive play. If the offense doesn't even need to be the world-beating offense that we've seen from Texas in the past, right? The offense just needs to not screw up. Like, if you go and don't screw up, and even in games that you do screw up, like we saw here, the defense is still good enough to keep you in it. It's like, just go out and play competent. Go out and don't shoot yourself in the foot on multiple drives, and you're going to be fine, which that was the difference in the Georgia game the first time. The Texas defense played really, really well. Texas shot itself in the foot multiple times. Quinn Ewers, let's call it. Like, Quinn Ewers turned the ball over multiple times in that game that led to Georgia points on short field. So when push comes to shove, the defense is good enough to play with and frankly beat anybody in the country. Can the offense play that complementary style football? And I want to call out one more thing that you mentioned. Over the last 3 weeks, Texas 194 yards in the fourth quarters, rushing in those 3 games. So Texas shut it down via the run in the fourth quarter. That's what I like to see. I'm an old school guy, old school football, run the ball, win at the line of scrimmage. That'll win you football games.
Yeah, 100%. Like we said, in the Kentucky game, they ran it 15 plays in a row, ended the game. Arkansas game, a drive to run it down their throat, end the game. Florida game, the same way. It was like a 6-minute drive, basically all running the football. This game, we didn't have a chance to do at the end, but then we see someone like, I mentioned him in the pregame, our pre-show Monday, Trey Moore comes up with the sack to end the game, and he's starting to play well too. And I think it just took him a little bit of time to acclimate to the speed, the physicality, because let's be honest here, jumping up from UTSA to this level is pretty hard to do. You see Colin Simmons starting to play better too in these type of big games. Vernon Broughton deserves all the flowers. He played phenomenal tonight. I think it probably was his best game in a Texas uniform. And then also on the play to end the game with Ethan Burke, I think he got his love. I want to give love to Bill Norton on that. He's the one that blew that up actually originally. If you watch it, he's submarine below everyone. He was like 2 yards laying in the backfield, and that allowed the running back to stop and then the edges to come down and make the tackle. So really good play by him. I think this defense just they do exactly what Bill Belichick football is about, which is basically do your job. That's what they do. None of them, I don't think, are like these all-time like great players other than maybe Jahdae Barron at his position. Maybe Anthony Hill is turning into that as well. But they're just players that do their job. I think Michael Taff is the perfect example of that. He doesn't really do anything spectacular. He's just in the right place at the right time because he hustles to the football, gets there, and then when he's there with the ball in the air, he's able to make plays. And that's what we're doing. We're seeing sound, fundamental, good football on the defensive side. You're seeing that from the offensive line. You're seeing that at basically every position other than 3, the quarterback, the kicker, and the punter. So we'll touch on that for right now. The kicking game has to be better in every aspect. We got a blocked punt tonight. We missed a field goal that was not close. He missed that by 5 yards to the right. Gerald, I'll let you hit on that.
Yeah, I mean, off the foot, it was bad. It was terrible. And like, I'm just going to say this. Texas has too many specialists on scholarship for this team to be this bad. And like, we can even talk about, this is the first time Silas Bolden hasn't had a, oh my God, is he going to fumble it, a punt return this year. So like, to me, that like, I'm not going to be the one to shade Jeff Banks because Jeff Banks has been doing it and Jeff Banks has been good, but I'm not sure what's up with this team this year specifically, because last year the special teams wasn't bad. And I think some of it is just Bert Auburn is who Bert Auburn is at this point, and he's great for everything under 40, anything over or 40-ish and beyond. It's going to be hit or miss. I hated that punt call that they made, the one that kind of went to the end zone. You gained about 20 yards from that. I wish Texas had gone for it there.
4th and 3.
Yeah, it's a 4th and 3. You're on, you gain probably 20-ish yards of field position, so it doesn't really do much to impact the game state from there. I wish Puntalytics was still a thing so we could see what the percentages were on that, which way to go with it. But, and then when we have to talk about it, we're talking about Quinn Ewers struggled tonight. Like, there's no two ways around it. And we saw both what makes Quinn Ewers an incredibly exciting talent and incredibly high ceiling prospect. Some of those throws he made, there are few guys in the country that can make those throws. You mentioned the one to Jaden Blue at the back of the end zone. The one that sticks out to me is like the old school Brent Favre pump fake to get the defender in the air and then dump it over his head to Gunnar Helm to convert a third and medium. Like those types of plays, there are very few guys in the country that can make those plays. And so there are times when Quinn Ewers is going to win you the game, but it's almost like a Quinn Ewers tax, right? Where Quinn Ewers is going to make some incredible throws. He's going to drop a dime in a spot where nobody else can do it, but then he's going to have some plays where he tries to do too much. And I think I need somebody to explain to me the quarterback sliding rules, because that fumble was a bit iffy, because I thought the play was dead when the quarterback gives himself up. And if the defender doesn't go for the swat and decides to blow him up instead, they're probably throwing a 15-yard flag there. So I have some questions about that fumble specifically. But either way, don't leave it in the ref's hands. Like, hold on to the dang ball. But like, you can't turn the ball over in the red zone. There's one thing that you can't do as an offense, and that's turn the ball over in the red zone. They did it twice, and both of them were on the quarterback. I could see that play getting intercepted from jump. I was like, they're going to throw it there. It's going to get picked off. Like, I didn't expect it to go all the way back, but I didn't love the play call. The route got blown up at the line. The defender, Will, what's his name?
Lee.
Will Lee. Gosh, I couldn't remember it. Had a great game. He had a couple of times where his ability to blow a receiver up at the line threw off the entire scheme for Texas, and it resulted in a couple of big plays for them. So, Quinn Ewers has to be better. I'm not sure what it's going to take. I think we went to the well one too many times with the Arch Manning package. I think that last one, right before the interception, kind of made that drive weird and things got out of whack. So, but overall, again, it's a win. A win's a win. The offense needs to be better. The offense can be better. And think we've got a couple of weeks to sort that out before the SEC championship game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how we play in that, how we decide to attack Georgia after obviously already playing them the first time. But yeah, Quinn, it's just weird. To me, everything kind of evened out, because that throw that he made in the first quarter, that over the middle, that should have been picked off. That was one of the worst throws I've ever seen a quarterback decide to make, because like you're lofting a ball that's late, and it wasn't even late. It was super late over the middle. That should have been picked off.
100%.
And then the one to Bryce Anderson, I actually didn't hate that throw. He actually put some mustard on that. He usually doesn't. He stepped into that throw and was like, you know what? I'm letting this ride. If it's going to get through, it's going to get through. I actually don't hate that throw, honestly, because we don't that's a throw actually as Texas fans have been begging for him to make, is like, hey, listen, it's tight. Just rocking it in there. We know you got it. So he decided to do it, and it worked out. But yeah, the one to Will Lee, and then the interception, obviously, especially when you had Gunnar Helm running a seam wide, naked, open. They left him butt wide open. Like there was no one near him. He could have caught that, laid down, rolled it in the end zone, done whatever he wanted to. Like whatever he wanted, he was wide open. And yeah, you're right about that route. Like that route for that specific wide receiver, which is Ryan Wingo, I disagreed with. To me, he doesn't have the agility to run that type of route. That was like a whip route where he runs it inside and then back outside. That's not his game to me. His game is straight line speed.
Yep.
That should have been, and that's the thing. I don't know if Isaiah Bond can run those routes right now with that ankle. I think you kind of see him, favoring it. I think the only guy capable of running that route right now is probably Matthew Golden, which I think he should have got some more love tonight too. We really didn't target him much at all tonight. But overall, I think it was a solid game. The punt block was really bad. Like as soon as that came back to Kern, I knew that was getting blocked. Like there was no one covering that guy off the edge. And he didn't go wide enough. For some reason, he took like one step to the right. He didn't take two or three like he normally does. So that was kind of weird. I want to come back and watch that play too, because I don't know if they ran that like New England Patriots special where you have a guy coming screaming from the outside to get the momentum going. I think they might have, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, we just got to clean the little things up, because this, like you said, Gerald, this defense is good enough to where if you just do the little things correctly, you don't have to do anything special. I said if this team scores 27 points versus anybody, they can win a national championship. I'm lowering that. I think if we score 24 points versus everybody, I think you can win a national championship. I really believe that after watching this year. And because it is a down year. I don't care what anyone says. I've watched enough college football. Like there's no great team this year. I said on the SEC show that I also host with Tyler that I think 5 or 6 teams from last year could have win the national championship this year pretty easily, and I stand by that. I think you might even expand that after today, honestly. So it's going to be interesting. Let's look ahead a little bit, Gerald. What do you think Texas has to do to beat Georgia?
I mean, I think it kind of comes back to the conversation we're just having. Texas turned the ball over too many times against Georgia, gave them short fields, and Georgia capitalized on that. I said it on my podcast. Like, if you had told me going into that game that Texas turns Georgia over 3 times, that I bet the farm on Texas to win that game. But you didn't have the data that the offense would do the same. So I think for me, that's the big thing. Is take care of the football. You cannot turn it over multiple times. And I think Texas's running game is finding its stride in the right moments. The offensive line is playing really well again. We want to hear what Kelvin Banks and look. My layman couch thing. It looks like an Achilles situation, based on where he was grabbing after the play, got rolled up on. That always sucks to see. It's the most dangerous thing in football to me. But that is the key. Can Texas run the ball, keep Georgia from pinning their ears back, and getting after the quarterback? Can one of the running backs block somebody on a pass play? I had some mean things to say about Jaden Blue after that sack. He totally redeemed himself with that catch, so I'm glad I didn't put that out there on social media. I just sent it in a group text. But can the running backs pick up on pass pro? Can they be prepared for because Georgia added some wrinkles to their scheme that Texas hadn't seen on film going into that game. So can they be prepared for whatever weirdness that Kirby Smart is going to dial up in this week? But ultimately, I think if Texas can run the ball consistently like they have over the last 3 weeks, and if they can simply just not turn the freaking ball over, I feel okay going into Atlanta.
Yeah, I do as well, and we'll get to these comments real quick. Jim R says the defense was probably the best I've seen this year. I appreciate that, Jim.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we are the best. I mean, Ohio State has some pieces that I definitely like, but their defensive line going into the year, I said this, they're overrated. JT and Sawyer are not who they were out of high school. They're not these 5-star can't miss recruit type guys.
Yep.
Adonis, Aggie fan here. Y'all looked amazing all around, and congrats on the win. Appreciate that. Go beat the hell out of Georgia. Well, we're going to try. We definitely need our payback. But I agree with a lot what you said, Gerald. I think in this game, we saw what Haynes King did to Georgia. He was just killing them on the ground with his legs. I think you're going to have to see the Arch Manning package a decent amount in this game because his legs just add a different dynamic to this offense, but you're also going to have to throw with him. You just can't run it 10 times with him. You're going to actually have to throw the football. And I actually, in the red zone, I don't trust Arch Manning because he just does not believe in a throw. If he sees a throw, he has not seen one he does not like yet. He let that thing rip.
Freshman quarterback problems, right? Redshirt freshman.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, I would play him. If I'm going to play him, I'm going to play him in between the 20s. I'm not playing him in the red zone if you're going to let it rip. If you're going to play him in the red zone, run the ball. But definitely, if you want to unleash a couple deep balls with him, I have no issue with that. He throws a good deep ball. He has a really good arm, and we have the weapons to beat Georgia deep. And that's another thing, too. Georgia's secondary, they're getting cooked by all types of wide receivers. They're getting cooked by Georgia Tech. They're getting cooked by Florida when they had a quarterback that was able to throw in that game. Definitely gettable in that game. The only thing, I liked how Trevor Gooseby played in this game, but how does he stack up when he's playing Jalen Walker? How does he stack up when he's playing Michael Williams? Those guys are different. Those guys are top 20 picks in the NFL draft, and it's a down in and down out basis versus those guys. Do I think Trevor Gooseby can win 5 to 6 reps? Yeah, I do, because the dude's 6'7", 315, and he's going to be a good football player. I've seen enough to where I believe that, but versus those guys, that's a different story. It's going to be interesting. And it all starts, like you said, Gerald, the ground game. We have to get that going because Quinn Ewers, no matter what, he is good at play action passes. We've seen that. When he gets his back turned to the defense and then turns around, he's very good at finding the open wide receiver that Sark gives to him. So we have to establish that running game. And also, Sark, in the last game, you got caught up with going east and west way too much, and they just out-athleted you on the outside. You have to be able, to me, early on, I would run the ball north and south, and then I would try to hit as many play-action deep passes as you can get going down the field to then you can start running east to west. You cannot start out running east to west in this football game.
Too fast.
Yeah, way too fast. That in this football game, I said the same thing. We did that early on. I was like, okay, you got to abandon and push the ball down the field. Once they did that, they started to have success, and then they were able to go east and west like that. So that's my opinion on that.
I think something else that we may, or I hope to see, I guess we may see against Georgia, Texas has really leaned into the screen game in the last several weeks, and that is a way to capitalize on an over aggressive defense. Georgia is going to play really aggressively. They're going to bring a lot of pressure. They're going to do a lot of things in the middle. And Texas has really shown an ability to execute on screen passes in these last couple of weeks. I mean, Texas converted on a 13-yarder last week. Texas converted on, I think, another 10-plus yard one this week. So, like, there are multiple times where I think Texas is going to try to take the Georgia aggression and turn it on itself, right? Because if a team is going to play as aggressive as Georgia is going to, then you can probably catch them in those screens. So I think there's an opportunity there for Texas to try to catch them slipping a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to be interested to see when that line might already be right now, what that line is going to be for that SEC championship game. I know Texas was favored by 3.5, 4.5, something like that in Austin. So in Atlanta, I'm going to assume Texas probably is going to be the favorite by 1 or 2 points. It's going to be interesting. And Jim says he'll take our lines versus GA. Yeah, I would have said that the first time, though. And our offensive line played their worst game of the year. Quinn Ewers played her worst game of the year. And that's the thing, too. Like, think about that. That game on the scoreboard was a blowout at halftime. But if you look at and after the game, honestly, but if you look at the box score and you look at the yards per play, we were basically the same team. The difference was we gave the ball to Georgia on our side of the field with the turnovers. When they turned the ball over, they gave it deep in their own territory. So, like, I can say this with a straight face. If you just don't turn the ball over in your own territory, you probably got a shot in this game. You could turn it over if in the red zone. I don't want you to. I want you to score in the red zone. But if you're going to turn it over, I'd rather you do it there because it's going to be hard sledding to go on our defense to go 60, 70, 80 yards to score field goals or touchdowns versus our defense. But if you're going to give it to them in that type of field position, it's easy. Like, our defense did a pretty good job of keeping it what it was at halftime last time, which was 23-0. So
it was be interesting. It was a 2-score game in which Georgia scored on multiple turnovers and Texas didn't. Like, if you either eliminate those turnovers or score on the times that Georgia gives you the ball, it's a different ball game, right? Like, that to me is either take care of the ball better or when Georgia gives you the ball, score. Because Carson Beck is going to give you the ball. He's shown you that. We know who he is. He's going to throw an interception. Can you score when he does that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers coming into the season, a lot of people said were the two best quarterbacks in the country. I was on that train as well. I thought Carson Beck was a little bit overrated coming in. And it's funny because I think Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are basically the same quarterback at this point. Like, they both will show you plays of, damn, wow, I could see why this guy's a first-round pick. Then you're going to be like, this guy can make the NFL the next play. So they're literally the same guy. They turn the ball over. Sometimes they give you beautiful throws, like the throw Carson Beck made yesterday in the Georgia Tech game of threading it over 2 guys to fit into Dominic Lovett, who made that catch. That was an insane throw. And then he'll throw a terrible, terrible interception. So Quinn Ewers does the exact same thing. They're the same guy. So it's both defenses. I think are going to have balls in this game where they can intercept it or take it away from the opposing offense. I think whoever gets that and then capitalize that offensively is going to win this football game. That's what it's going to come down to.
Absolutely, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I can't wait. I wanted to rematch them for a while. It kind of reminded me a couple years ago when we lost to Oklahoma. I was like, come on, get back, get that rematch. And we never got that rematch because we didn't take care of business. This time we took care of business. We're setting up for that rematch in Atlanta. It's going to be a home game. It's funny, though. Georgia does not play well in Atlanta. So let's see if we can get them down in Atlanta this year.
I mean, when push comes to shove, like we can find a lot of pimples on the prom queen, right? We can look for what the issues are. But when push comes to shove, 4 years ago when Texas announced the move to the SEC, I could have never imagined saying that Texas is playing for an SEC championship game in their first year, right? There was all the talk of Texas coming into the SEC and floundering, Texas coming to the SEC and struggling. Like, all that's dead. All that is in the dirt. Texas came in first year, took care of business, won all but one SEC game. A&M had a 13-year head start to do it, and they couldn't get it done. Texas did it in their first year, right? And I'm not saying – I'm not throwing dirt on A&M's grave. I think Marcel Reed is going to be an incredible quarterback coming in. I think they've got a lot of green grass ahead of them. But ultimately, when push comes to shove, there were a lot of narratives that have been put to bed right now. And a lot of it comes down to Texas built the program that they needed to. Sark had a clear vision of what it needed to do. He learned from the best to ever do it. Came in, brought that to Texas, knew exactly what it needed to do, was cutthroat about it in a lot of ways, and kind of did what he needed to do to trim the fat and get things shifted to the right way. And Texas is where Texas needs to be, and Texas is back where Texas is supposed to be.
Yeah, 100%. And he's gone about the transfer portal the right way as well, too, where he's not all in on the transfer portal like a Florida State type program, where if you do that, you're going to go through ebbs and flows of a team, because guess what? You're transporting literally a new culture every year based on the transfer portal. If you're going to take 30 guys from the transfer portal, where if you build a foundation, you build a culture, you implement special guys from the portal like a Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, guys like that are willing to take on the culture and become part of Texas. This is what you get. This is how it's supposed to be built. And that's the amazing thing, because this isn't something that's going to be built on a crappy foundation and be gone. This is going to be here to stay, and it's going to last. And that's the beautiful thing of what Steve Sarkisian has built here at Texas. Like, it's going to be the next guy up mentality. We are now that factory of the Georgias, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, of next guy in, come in, do your job, move on to the NFL. And you're going to see that from years to come. And I think, like tonight, Trevor Goosby was the perfect freaking example of that. You lose a top 10 pick with Kelvin Banks in the NFL draft. That's what he's going to be. And Trevor Goosby comes in, makes one mistake, and it was a false start, and that is it. He played phenomenal other than that. So Steve Sarkisian's done a great job.
I mean, Trey Wisner, another guy. And you look at, you mentioned the foundation of this program and how Texas has and Sark have built it. Like, the majority of the guys that we've talked about on this live stream and in the post game are guys that were recruited to Texas. They're not transfer guys. Now, obviously, Texas has supplemented in the skill positions, but I think I'm again, those of you that are new to me, you'll get tired of hearing this. Football is built in the trenches, and almost all of the guys outside of Trey Moore, really, I guess those defensive tackles, but on the offensive line, those are all homegrown guys. Those are all guys that started in Austin, stayed in Austin. Colin Simmons, a guy you recruited Austin. Anthony Hill, a guy you recruited Austin, right? Ethan Burke, a guy you flipped on signing day. David Benda, all of those dudes, like, that is the foundation of your team. They've built the culture. They've established the culture. And then, like you said, you supplement where you need to. You get to be selective in the transfer portal. It's not like what Ole Miss had to do, put in all your chips and decide, try to buy an SEC championship, and it doesn't gel. And now you're looking at another, 9-3 year, and you have nothing to show for all that NIL money. So again, it is hard to build a program through the portal. Texas has done it the right way. Texas, Kyle Flood and Bo Davis came in and said, we're going to rebuild the trenches. We're going to build it inside out. And here we are.
Yeah, and there hasn't been a transfer offensive lineman that's come in and played for this team. It's all been high school recruits, and that's the way to do it. And basically defensive linemen as well, other than this year with the interior guys. But if you see, our best interior players are still the guys that were homegrown from the University of Texas, that you got out of high school. And then you supplement with a guy like Bill Norton, who will play 15, 20 plays, Jermaine Lole, who will play 15, 20 plays. But they're also guys who the staff knows and who has vetted, and they don't have to be, like you said, they can be choosy. They don't have to say, please come to Texas, please come to Texas. They basically sit you down and be like, why do you need us? This is why we need you. This is how we're going to utilize you. They're not going to lie to you. They're not going to tell you some BS that you want to hear. They're going to tell you how they're going to utilize you. And I think Trey Moore is a perfect example of that, because Trey Moore came in and most people thought, oh, hand in the dirt, he's going to rush the passer. No, this guy's dropping into coverage. He's playing middle. He's playing middle linebacker sometimes this year. So, and then there's been times where he puts his hand in the dirt because they probably pitched him, hey, you're going to come here. We think you're a good player, but we're going to use you as a defensive weapon. We're not just going to use you as a pure pass rusher here. And he's played phenomenal in that role.
I mean, I mean this in the best way possible. It is a business relationship and a business decision. Guys like Andrew Makuba, guys like Trey Moore want to come to Texas, want to show themselves off for NFL scouts at the highest level, and want to compete for a national championship. It's good for them. They're going to fall in line with the culture. And you see, guys, we saw some last year, dudes that didn't fit in with the culture. They didn't make it they didn't make it through all 12 games. There's a safety that I won't mention his name, cleaned out his locker before the season was over, right? You see Amari Niblack for the first freaking time in 6 months on the field, because maybe finally he got his act together. He didn't have many highlight plays, but at least he saw the field and saw a couple of balls go his way. And so I'm assuming that means that he's gotten his act together. But you add to the culture, you supplement. When you think about the position Texas is in, they either get guys from the portal that in positions they need to raise the floor, like they did at defensive tackle, or raise the ceiling, like they did at wide receiver. They're not having to piecemeal a team together, and that's a really good spot to be in.
Yeah, 100%. And I think another example, like Amari Black, he never said anything when whatever he was going through, whatever it was, he never said anything. Whereas, no offense, Jonte Cook, man, like getting kicked off the team basically, and then just going nuclear on Twitter. And like you do, like I just don't understand that for multiple reasons. Like you do have a reputation, you still have to uphold, and you're still in college. Like other college coaches are not going to like that. They're going to be like, this guy's going to come here, he could do the exact same thing. Now he is talented, but still, like this team basically what they do is weed out guys like that. Let's be honest here. That's what happened here. And then he's gone, and we don't really have to worry about him. I guarantee you, most people in that locker room aren't thinking about him. He clearly is thinking about us because he cannot stay off Twitter. But I mean, it's just crazy how quickly and how well this thing has been built by Steve Sarkisian. 4 years, and you're in an SEC championship game where if you would have told people where we were moved to the SEC, people found out about this 3 years ago, they would have laughed, man. They would have said, you're crazy, you're wrong. Why do you think that? Da 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 da. Well, you build a good foundation like Steve Sarkisian has, and that is why you can get to an SEC championship game in year 4. And that is why this team can compete and could win a national championship also.
I mean, back-to-back years they're looking at the college football playoff, and I think back to this is how nerdy I am. There was a Steve Sarkisian like weekly press conference in his like first full recruiting cycle, and I don't remember who it was, but they were asking about people are sweating offensive line recruiting and blah 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 blah. And his response was, the guys that we're targeting, the guys that can make a difference, aren't deciding until signing day. And then lo and behold, they have the offensive line class I've ever seen, and that day of recruiting and that comment of being patient and doing it right and targeting the right guys and the guys that can be difference makers, like not freaking out. We had some chicken littles after the Georgia game, and rightfully so. Like they got whipped in a lot of ways, but the sky clearly wasn't falling. There are things that you can shore up, and with the right level of patience, with the right level of building, with the right level of intentionality, we can end up here. And now we're looking at a team that's going to Atlanta and playing for an SEC championship game. And they have a legitimate shot to win it. I'm not going to put a flag in the dirt and say they are going to win it, but there's an opportunity. I mean, they are playing for an SEC championship, and our biggest rivals are not anywhere close at this point.
No, 100%. And I think this is I would say a moment to look at for every college football fan, for your Michigans, your Oklahomas, your other teams like that are down right now. Be patient with who you have and also build it the right way. Do not just go into the portal and think, you know what, I can do this every year, because you can't. We've seen that. It does not work, guys. You have to be patient. Even with Oklahoma, like I think Brent Venables has the type of mentality you need. Will they give him enough time? I don't know. They may not. We'll see, because listen, his side of the ball is playing well. Like, let's be honest here. Oklahoma's defense is really good. It's the offense that has issues, and they even started to play better at the end of the season. But the key to anything is just be patient, pursue it, and most of the time, if you're patient, you pursue it, and you have the will to do it, you can probably get to it. And that's the thing with Texas. For the long time, we didn't have that will as just a brand, as an organization from top down. We didn't have the will to stick with someone and be like, you know what, we're going to take these 3 to 4 years, build this thing right. And we finally stuck with someone, and we were willing to do that. And it's starting to pay off now, and it isn't even done paying off.
Yeah. And you know, Sark has done it quicker than I think a lot of us have anticipated. Like, we have to call that out, right? I think if Sark was, was 2 wins worse in these last 2 years, we might be having a different conversation. If Texas lost this game, we might have some different have some different feelings. But I think ultimately, like when we saw a decade and a half essentially of Texas being a place where guys don't go to develop, 5 stars go to die, all of those things, a lot of that comes back to the fact of Texas was churning through coordinators. And it's hard for a guy to develop if they're having to learn a new system every other offseason, every other spring they're installing a new defense. It's hard to develop because you have to learn the fundamentals of that system over and over again. So the level of continuity that Texas has seen on the coaching staff and the ability, Texas is going to start becoming a place where guys go to be a destination for coaching, right? You're going to start to see Texas coaches get poached for bigger and better jobs, and it's going to turn into a factory. And that's going to be a really cool thing to see. But that's going to create that level of continuity. You see Texas has guys in the analyst roles and in the building that will be able to step in and help coach when and if when these guys start to get poached for bigger and better coaching jobs. So the level of patience and continuity that Texas has had over the last several years is why we're here, because guys can develop when they actually have time to develop, and they can get to know their coaches, and they can get to know the system, and they can ask the right questions. Installs are hard. Installs aren't easy to do, and they honestly hamper a lot of your development because you have to just spend so much time thinking and learning, and you can't be a football player.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you cannot in any sport be thinking by playing. Just have to be reactionary to everything, because if you're thinking out there, you are not going to be looking good. You can tell when someone's thinking when they play sports, and it does not look good. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like, when's the last time Texas had their offensive coordinator, their head coach, and their defensive coordinator for 4 years in a row? It had to be at the early part of the Mac Brown era. Before that, I don't even know. Because that was not happening. You were getting a different defensive coordinator, different offensive coordinator, like every year, basically at one point. Yeah. So it's really impressive. And the cool thing is, like, defense coordinator and offense coordinator, I don't think Kyle Flood or Pete Kwiatkowski are going anywhere anytime soon. I really don't. I don't think PK has any I don't think he wants to be a head coach. If he wanted to be a head coach, he'd be a head coach by now. Unless someone like crazy comes open and they offer him a job, like, I don't know, Alabama came open again and they offered Pete Kwiatkowski the job. Okay, he probably would take that job, but he's not taking any medium tier job. I don't see that happening. And Kyle Flood, I think, is kind of the same way. Unless he gets something in the NFL, I just don't see him leaving. I think he had his experience at Rutgers and he didn't like it, and I understand why. And I think most people, once they've gone past that, realize, like, hey, listen, I got a good job here. I'm making $1.5 million, $2 million. I'm not going to get fired. I could do this for the next 10 years and I'll be here. So I don't see either of those two leaving. I think they've done a great job. And I want to touch on this by Jim Root. Tough not to have Sark in the top 5. I think, yeah, I don't really see, other than Kirby Smart, I think you could debate Steve Sarkisian as high as 2.
Yeah.
I think you can. After what I saw from Ryan Day today against Michigan again, I think Steve Sarkisian could easily be the second best coach in college football.
I need to see what Oregon does in the Big Ten championship game, but I think you're probably looking at a top 3, top 4. Jim's latest comment too. I agree, man. If A&M gives Elko time, I think they'll be good. This pains me to say, but it feels good to be able to say this after the last guy. Like, I think Elko is a good football coach. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a guy who's building, much like Sark is doing, like you said. He's building the program right. I think he's building a program with a solid foundation, doing some great in-state recruiting. They're going to be good. And I'm a firm believer that college football is better when all of the rivalries are fun and good. And so, this game didn't need to be as exciting as it was, but this is what college football is all about, right? Would I have much rather, for my blood pressure and my ability to sleep tonight, have it been a blowout? Absolutely. But this game could be fun. This game could be 2 elite teams playing like elite teams. And so I think Elko has got the goods. I think they have it in them to be patient. I think his contract might be structured to help them be patient too, which is nice for them. So I think he's going to be able to put it together there.
Yeah, I think what they did under Jimbo was basically just try to money whip recruits, guys that did not want to be at A&M, and they were basically like, well, what if we give you double the amount of money that you're getting from another school? Well, you know what? A&M doesn't sound half bad, whereas now it's like, this is what Steve Sarkisian said about Texas. Like, we'll sit down, we'll have the conversation. Why do you want to come here? Why do we want you? And then we'll talk about NIL. If that's the first thing you're talking about, and you're having, like I said, to money whip guys to come there, they aren't going. They're not going to play very well when they're there. And as soon as things go bad, bye-bye, I'm gone, don't need you, I'll go find somewhere else. And we saw that with Jimbo Fisher and his recruits. Like, most of that class from that big recruiting class is gone. They're nowhere to be seen on this roster. And a lot of those guys aren't even in college football anymore because they got kicked out from just being like they were drag racing at Texas A&M. Think about that. They were basically Georgia before Georgia. They're going crazy over there. And Texas doesn't have that. That's another thing. There's no off the field issues. Texas has no off the field issues where you see that with other programs. So respect to Steve Sarkisian for that. So, and I agree. I think Mike Elko's building it right. I think you could have saw them quit tonight, and that defense never quit. I'll give them props.
Nope.
They never quit. Like they could have easily tapped out because they got no help from that offense, none. So I think they definitely have the right guy. I said that before the season. I think it was a good hire. I think Mark Stoops even would have been a decent hire because it's someone that just like gets down to the fundamentals and nitty gritty of actual football. Yeah. It's none of the other BS outside noise that Jimbo Fisher, for whatever reason, surrounded him as soon as he got there. So it's going to be interesting how they bounce back. I agree. I think Marcel Reed's going to be a pretty decent quarterback. I think they got to get some more wide receivers for him. They do not have any real weapons at wide receiver. Yeah. Their offensive line is good. It's not great. Defensive line is kind of the same, good, not great. Secondary definitely needs a little bit of work, but I think they're heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. I mean, it's good to have the back. It's good to have it back. It's good to be able to have this conversation. And I think it's really funny to see the parallels between like how Tom Herman built recruiting classes and how Jimbo built recruiting classes, and now how Sark and Elko are building recruiting classes. This is how it should be.
100%. Tommy said earlier should have been 35-0. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, it could have been anywhere from should have been at least 24 to 35, somewhere between there. Shit, that's what it should have been. We could say that for every Texas game this year. Well, it should have been this. Well, it should have been that. But it isn't. It is what it is. I'm a Yankees fan too, so I know I'll probably get hate for that because it's like Yankees and Texas all. But those two teams this year have so many similarities of, man, the Yankees should have won this game by more runs, or the Yankees shouldn't have crapped the bed in a fifth inning of a World Series game versus the Dodgers and should have won that game. But this team's kind of the same way. Like they don't do the little things well at all times, and it gets them into these games they should have no business of being in. So you just got to clean those things up because it is there, guys. It's there for the taking. Ohio State doesn't impress me. Penn State doesn't impress me. Georgia doesn't impress me. The only team so far that, and even them, like Oregon, they're good, but I don't think they're great. I think they can be exploited. They are very, I don't know, gimmicky offensively to me. There's a lot of gimmicks offensively. Yeah.
They almost lost to Ohio State. Like that's it. If Will Howard can manage that game better, they probably lose that one. So there's that piece of evidence for you.
Yeah, 100%. So it's there for the taking, guys. We just got to go out and take it, and the offense just got to be good. It doesn't have to be great. It has to be good because I think it's the best defense in the country. So we got that with us. Special teams, just don't mess it up. Don't get a punt blocked. That's actually just that. Don't get punts blocked because I don't expect Bert Auburn to start making 45-yard field goals again anytime soon. I don't know what the hell has happened from last year to this year, but completely gone mentally, it seems like. So I don't know what to expect from him.
Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl by not screwing it up. That just be the Trent Dilfer Baltimore Ravens. Let the defense be the defense. Don't screw it up for them and go out and win a championship.
Yeah, and there are teams that have gotten there that way, like the Rex Grossman Bears, that defensive team.
Yep.
Didn't screw it up. Well, guess what? When he got to the Super Bowl, he screwed it up. They lost the Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo with the 49ers didn't screw it up for most of the year. Kind of screwed it up in the Super Bowl. So you can get there even with just not screwing it up. And once you get there, you got a shot to win it. So I agree. You just cannot screw it up. You can't have that big blow when it matters most. You just can't turn the ball like a pick six. If they would have just thrown an interception there, we'd have been fine, but you can't throw a pick six there. So that's I think that's going to do it for us. Unless Gerald, you have anything you want to get off your chest real quick?
Hook 'em. Yeah, hold that out for another year.
Yep. Texas wins this one 17-7. I will remind you guys, every Monday night, we're switching it at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Join us for Texas Longhorns Live. We're going to be jumping in. It's Atlanta time. We're going to be talking Georgia. I might even have a Georgia guest on to discuss that game. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about this A&M game. We'll recap that. If there's any recruiting news that breaks from now and then, we'll talk about that as well, because there definitely could be. There were some big-time recruits there. Michael Fasusi was there tonight. Javion Hilson was there tonight. And you guys know my prediction on this channel. I said whoever wins this game, I believe, gets Javion Hilson. I think that's how close this recruitment's been. So I think there's a real chance he commits to Texas in the next couple of days. So I'll definitely cross, because Colin Simmons, you're getting another one of him if he commits to Texas. So that'd be really nice. So definitely cross your fingers on that one, and I'll be here breaking it if it does happen. So again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. And Gerald, hook them one more time for our people out there. Thank you guys for watching.
Hook them, baby.